I'm Ramona Rice, and if I could be any animal, believe it or not, I would be a bat. And the reason why is they are so practical. They are so important for our ecosystem, and they eat pesky mosquitoes. And living on the coast, anything that eats all the mosquitoes is a friend of mine. So definitely a bat.
This is Paw Print, an animal rescue community, episode 85. I'm Nancy Ree.
And I'm Harold Ree.
Today's guest is Ramona Rice.
And when I looked at her, my heart did a flip. And I said in my mind, that's my dog. And I've never had that happen before. Again, I am a cat person because cats are indifferent and cats don't need you all the time.
Ramona Rice is a podcaster. She hosts two podcasts, the Sports Gal Pal and the We Should Not Be Friends podcast. She also discusses her new journey as an entrepreneur, content marketing, spa consulting as well. She also shares about her dog, Sophie, and how she, her children, and Sophie have been keeping it together after the death of Ramona's husband, James. If you want to learn more about Ramona Rice, go to our show notes at thisispawprint.com/85. That's the number 85.
Well, I'm definitely a cat person. I am one of those people that I love dogs. I think dogs are great, so long as they belong to other people. So you know how some people are like kid people, but they only like other people's kids and they like to play with them and get them sugared up and give them back? I'm the same way with dogs. And so for me to have a dog now is just so hilarious in my mind because I never picture myself as a dog owner ever.
What's the name of your dog and how long have you had your dog?
I've had Sophie. It's about 3 years now.
Wow.
It'll be 4 years in December, I believe. Yeah.
What makes Sophie special?
She's crazy. And I do mean that legitimately. She's just neurotic. I mean, she is definitely a mutt, yet she has all the skin issues of a pedigree. So that's always fun. Like the poor baby will like chew her paws up till like she's bleeding. I'm like, stop it. Oh my gosh. We've tried everything. And finally, we had to put her on steroids, which stinks. But, you know, she's hilarious in the fact that she, you know, is very protective of me and the kids, which is amazing. But she hops like, you know, the cartoon character Tigger. Yep. I call her that because she will literally boing like a kangaroo when she's really excited, and she will hop in the air. It's like boing, boing, and and the way she yawns is just darling to me. So she loves her blankets and loves being pampered, and I mean she's just a princess.
Well, as we were talking in preparation for this, I mean, you got a lot of stuff going on in your life.
Sure. So, you know, the best I describe my professional life is I'm a professional content marketer. So for those people who don't know, content marketing is everything from social media to blogging to podcasting, video content. And I specialize in helping businesses, particularly service-based businesses that are based on appointments, help shorten that sales cycle through content marketing. Because of that, I've gotten really into podcasting, and that's how you and I connected.
That's right.
And it's just one of those things where once you have one podcast, you kind of want like 4 more. So I have several of them launching at once because I'm actually going independent. I'm leaving my regular full-time job, which is probably crazy to some people. But, you know, I've had a significant life change this year, and it's time. And so it allows me to spend more time with the children, allows me to spend more time with the dog, which is very good, and hopefully prevent her from chewing her paws to death.
As you're kind of thinking this through, really, in your case, going on that entrepreneurial journey, what are the things you look forward to? What are the things you're maybe a little bit afraid of?
Looking forward to is just more time with my family. So to let your audience in, I lost my husband in February to a stroke. He was 37.
That's right.
And, you know, my family was devastated. I stopped podcasting and I just kind of went through the motions. And it's something I've always wanted to do, be independent, but I was, you know, afraid, like a lot of people are, you know, will people buy from me? You know, how can I keep the money coming in? And, you know, when you kind of face the worst situation that you could ever face, and losing my husband, is definitely that. You kind of lose your fear a little bit, and you kind of go, you know what? If you're going to ever do it, take the jump and do it. Do it smartly, do it with a plan. But that's what I'm doing. And it's just, you know, for me, it's owning my time. You know, I want to be able to grab Sophie and grab the kids. And, you know, if we have great beaches in our area, and just in the middle of the day, like let's take Sophie for a walk on the beach.
Okay.
Or I want to be the doggy mom that gets to drop her off at the beauty parlor and pick her up. You know, I don't get to do that now. So it's one of those things where time is so precious. And that's really what I'm focusing on this next, 6 months, is how much time can I spend with my children and the dog. Let's be honest, it's about the dog.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I'm sure the dog's looking at you as you're saying that, right? So
it's funny. My parents' dog is actually, so I actually podcast in my walk-in closet. And the door stays open in case the kids kind of pop in and they know if I'm podcasting, unless they're like literally bleeding to death, do not interrupt mommy. But the other dog, the half chow, half lab Alto, she's the one kind of laying down. She has really bad arthritis. And so it's raining, so it flares up. And I'm on the downstairs floor. So she's kind of living in my room lately. So it's just dogs are fun that way.
Interesting. Well, leading up to James's death, at the time, your life was a little bit different, right?
Way different. Yeah.
Right. And it really wasn't that long ago. How would you say, if we had met you or if we had interviewed you, let's say end of 2015, what would you say you were doing with your podcasting, with your work life?
Well, work life, I worked for a really large real estate company. One of your former guests, Jen Barkham, was actually a coworker of mine, and I worked with her on the Ask Jen project, where she would bring the dogs from the Norfolk SPCA out to the thing, and I'd help support that and do some other things, and that was my day-to-day life. And
yes,
then
and thank you for connecting us with Jen. That was a phenomenal episode.
It was a phenomenal episode. I'm not saying that because I love Jen and you, but it was a really good, just compelling episode, and just shows, if you're creative, you can bring whatever passion, whether it's animal rescue or whatever, into your regular work life, so long as you've got some flexibility. And they were like that. And, and I have a podcast called The Sports Gal Pal. And so a lot of people are like, what, sports? You're such a girly girl, which is the truth. But I love sports. I love talking about fan stories and plays and what's going on. And right now we're in the middle of baseball season, about to get into the Olympics, and then football starts. It's just a great year for sports. And it was something my husband and I did together. We would go to games. We'd have season tickets to the University of Virginia football team. We would go to University of Virginia basketball games, and it was so much part of our life that honestly, if you had asked me in December what you wanted looking forward to, I would have said, Virginia winning national championship and men's basketball. That didn't happen. I would have looked for better coaching for Virginia, and I would have talked about all the different sports teams my husband and I would have watched. That's honestly what I would have talked about, because that was my passion and that was his passion, and it was where we connected. And I can't tell you how many days we would be in our room, the dog sitting on James, because she loved James. Oh my gosh. She loved Daddy very much. And, I'll supply some pictures. There's some really cute ones of the two of them together.
Absolutely.
And, we would watch games, and she'd just kind of hang out with us, and it's like, Mommy, Daddy are here. Hooray. And that's where she was happiest. And that's that. So my life now is very different, where, it is Sophie and I still, but it just feels different.
Well, first of all, go Who's, right? And then
yes, thank you, very good.
And then secondly, it's funny because your last episode of the Sports Gal Pal, you start out by saying, "Don't listen to this episode first. Listen to my other episodes first." But of course, it's just so compelling, the fact that what you shared on that episode, without getting stealing any of your thunder. I mean, how do you foresee Sports Gal Pal continuing, if you are going to continue it?
I am going to continue it. What I've decided to do is I need to fall in love with sports on my own terms. Again, it was uniquely tied to my husband and our marriage. And so I have to make the decision to watch games by myself and seek out research. And I was doing that anyway, but it was nice having that sounding board, having my guy there to answer questions or just to hang out with. And so now the whole premise of the show is really, how do you fall in love with sports on your own terms? And so when I bring guests on now, those are the questions I'm going to ask. It's all about really talking about why we as society are fans of sports. Because if you think about it, it's really ridiculous for the amount of grown-ups and the amount of money that is spent on watching sports. It's fanatical. And I think it's similar to people who are really passionate, particularly about dogs. We know this, that people who are passionate about dogs will spend any amount of money for their dog. Any amount. It doesn't matter. The same thing happens with devout sports fans. So there's a reason. There's the psychological and sociological reasons why we do the things we do. And I think if we understand them, we understand their place in the life. I think the dog thing is a little more accepting, just because at least you get the companionship of the puppy. Whereas certain teams will just disappoint you year after year after year. Again, I'm a UVA fan. Trust me, I know all about disappointment.
I'm a long-suffering Buffalo Bills fan, so yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, see, there you go.
Absolutely.
There you go. So it's one of those things where I think if we understand that as society, it helps us put the place correctly where it belongs.
So beyond Sports Gal Pal, you got a few other kind of podcast fires in the works or sparks in the works. You wanna explain a little bit more?
Sure. So I've got a new podcast coming out. Probably by the time this episode airs, it will already be out. It's called We Should Not Be Friends. So I have a best friend named Tim. He lives in Atlanta. I, of course, live in Virginia, and he is a single guy. I'm a widowed mother, too. We've never met in real life. We've met through podcasting, and we literally talk to each other every day. He is my best friend. He's been with me, I'll give you an example of how important he is to my life. When my husband was rushed to the hospital like 5-something in the morning, the day he died, it was Tim I called to calm me down. That he's that friend. And, and he's been there through all this with me and my kids. It's hilarious. But we also hate each other. So it's a very funny show. It is not appropriate for tiny humans to listen to. So if you have children in the car, do not listen to it. There's a lot of bad language. I'm not sure if I'm going to let my mom listen to it, to be honest with you, but it's fine. And it's all about like our dating adventures and just, both of us had significant life changes within the past 12 months. He had a significant breakup of a woman he was probably going to marry. Obviously, my husband passed away. So it's a very interesting kind of look at that, and it's a lot of fun. Then I'm also, my family's very fortunate. We've owned a very successful day spa here in the Hampton Roads area, which I live in, for over 20 years. It's called De-Stress Express, and so we're taking what we've learned from that and turning it into a company called Spapreneur, where we're going to help independent spa owners all across this country and all over the world, really hone in and make that spa experience amazing. Plus, I could talk about spying. That's always a good thing.
Yeah.
So I've got that going to work, and then I'm the community manager for Podcast Websites, and Podcast Websites is an all-in-one podcasting solution. I love it. I'm really biased, but it's a great way to get started in podcasting. And so it's amazing to me. I've only been podcasting a year now, Harold. I don't know if you know this.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's amazing when you get into something like this, it just changes your life. It was unexpected. Like when I adopted my dog, we adopted her and it completely changed my life. And I'm so glad we did. You're
leaving behind the 9 to 5. Realistically, how much time are you dedicating to each of these different ventures?
That's a really good question. I'm still working that out myself. My primary focus really is going to be building my relationship with Podcast Websites. That's my first and foremost main client. Second is Spapreneur, and then my 2 podcasts, which support Podcast Websites, because all 3 of those will be on the Podcast Websites platform. So it all kind of ties into there. The majority of my time, though, will be spent with the dog and the kids. We have a lot of healing and a lot of rebuilding to do. And, I'm lucky that I can put the kids in therapy. There's no therapy for puppies. And I can definitely tell she misses daddy a lot. So it's one of those where I'm like, okay, what do I need to do to help her? And I think it's just time. I think it's just me spending time. So honestly, bulk of my time, 60% of my time is going to be focused this summer on the 3 of them and my own healing.
When you look at Sophie and Sophie going through that mourning process, what do you observe?
The first couple of weeks, I could tell she was waiting for daddy to come home. I mean, that was the oddest thing. We started to move, everybody processes different, handles grief differently. I know some people will keep all the clothes of the person forever and ever and ever. I didn't want to do that because when I saw them in my closet, it just reminded me that he wasn't there. So we immediately removed them. I've got a couple of things left that I wanted to keep. And so I noticed every once in a while she'll start to smell them. And I think she can still smell him. She got really clingy to me, really protective of me for a while. Both dogs, in the first couple of weeks, you can barely get out of bed. It was just work getting out of bed. And I had this mantra in my head: get out of bed, take a shower, get dressed, make your bed. You've done enough. And after that was done, I can tell you both dogs would snuggle up with me. Particularly Sophie. We moved, we got her new bedding because I just was like, I got a new bed. Let's get her a new bed. And she's adjusting fine. She's still neurotic as anything. And it's one of those things I think she's just getting used to, like all of us, the new normal, where we're not really kind of waiting for him to come back because he's not going to. It's just different. And I think she misses the way, like he was 6'7", so she could sit on his lap very easily. And she's not the biggest dog, but she's also not the smallest dog. She's not a lap dog by any stretch of the means. So for her to get on me, I'm just like, oh my gosh, you're so big. With him, it was just like he just lied there and take it. So I think she misses that a lot.
Thanks for sharing that. I know it might not be the easiest thing to see and to observe, right? So
It's not, but it's honest. And I think a lot of people, we see these stories, they get very viral, on social media nowadays, where you see the dog like literally laying on the person's grave, and, it's very melodramatic. But I think dogs, they love us as much as we love them. And so when they suffer a loss, they suffer a loss. I believe the Red Fern Grows. That dog mourned the other dog until they met each other together, so there's something about that. And it's just, that's why dogs are really man's best friend, because they love us so much. And of course she's going to miss him. Yeah. That would be awful of us not to acknowledge that.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, let's rewind the clock back just a little bit. Maybe tell us a little bit about, obviously Virginia is in your life, but tell us a little bit about growing up and sort of your journey to get to this point.
Sure. So, I've been in Virginia since I was 3 years old. My dad was in the Navy, and like so many people in our area, moved because of the Navy. And when my parents divorced, my mom stayed here and married a guy. And we had cats growing up, except we had a Shih Tzu named Pepper. He was the runt of the litter at the vet's office. And my mom brought home this dog, and he was the cutest dog on the planet. And I knew, here's something funny for you, Harold. I knew that my husband was the guy for me when he came over to visit me when we were first dating back in like 2002, and he didn't make fun of the dog. Because it's easy to make fun of Shih Tzus and Pomeranians because they're like fluff dogs, right? He didn't. I had a boyfriend who was like, "Oh, that's a mop," and it's like, "No, it's not a mop. It's Pepper. He's very important." And so, he was the best. He was such a cutie pie. And so and James just loved dogs. The dogs just loved James. He loved little dogs. He had a Chihuahua named BJ for many years, and that dog was most protective of James. He did not like me at all.
Wow.
And just, no. He was like, I'd get around and I'm like, really, you tiny dog. So again, sometimes dogs like me and sometimes dogs don't like me. I don't know what that says about myself.
Huh.
But yeah, that's not true. It was just BJ. BJ just loved James. But James was just one of those guys that dogs just loved him. And people just loved him. He was just chill and relaxed, and whereas I'm high strung. And so, I went to college for a little while, hated it, and worked retail, got married to James and had a baby, and then left, worked with my parents at the day spa for a while. And then I went back to school, and I attended the University of Virginia as a grown up. So I have a degree from there. In social sciences. And that's where I kind of got into watching sports because, obviously Virginia used to have a really good football team. We have an amazing basketball team, amazing men's tennis program. And we're about to host a baseball super regional. Yay. So we, and I started watching sports really to relate to my husband, because I realized as we were moving in together and getting serious, I'm like, oh, this man will watch literally anything that's on ESPN. He'll watch curling, like, the sport with the thing where you shoot it down the ice and they use brooms. I'm like, he's watching this.
Hey, don't mock curling. Curling is an amazing sport.
I'm sure it's a lot of fun to play, but to watch, it just seemed like ludicrous, but whatever, to each their own. So, I said, well, let me learn more about football. And I did. And I checked out Football for Dummies by Howie Long. I'm not kidding, from the library. And I learned about football, and I started paying attention and started watching and started playing fantasy football. And all of a sudden I'm like, this is a lot of fun. And so that's what we did together. And so, we got married and had babies, and I finished my degree. And I actually did my fourth year thesis at Virginia. Virginia calls seniors fourth years on college athletics. And so, obviously I was super into sports. And so that's when I got the idea. Once I graduated, I'm like, I miss talking about sports. I'm going to start a blog to explain sports to women. And that's how Sports Gal Pal was born. And I kind of did it for a little while. And like most things, blogs are really hard to keep up with. So I kind of abandoned it, still watched football, still hung out with my husband. And in 2015, last year, I was attending a conference in Las Vegas for my real job, and they wanted me to learn about podcasting. And that's where I discovered podcasting. And I got discovered by a man named Jay Soderberg, who used to be head of podcasting for ESPN. And he's on Blog Talk Radio. And that's where I got my start. So that's how I got into podcasting. Yeah. So it's a fun story. And I just fell in love. I spent enormous amounts of time in my walk-in closet studio, not looking at shoes and belts, but talking to people through my microphone. It's really fun.
In your own sort of mourning process, who's been important to you, or what have you kind of learned about yourself in the past few months?
I've learned to forgive myself a lot and ask for help. I was never one to ask for help about anything, whether it be for the children, whether it be because I always had James, and James just magically took care of things. And I didn't have that anymore. So I really had to ask people, can you pick up the kids? Can you watch the kids? Can you take the dog for me? Can you pick up something for me? I had to do that. I had to give myself permission at my regular job to say, I'm only going to be able to work 40 hours a week. I would work weekends and holidays for them because I loved it. I love what I do. And I said, I can't do this anymore. Giving myself permission to really feel the grief, which I normally don't do. I normally am like, I'm going to stay positive throughout the whole thing, and giving myself permission to be vulnerable, on social media or with my friends going, I'm really sad. I don't want to do this today. And not feeling bad about it. That's what it's taught me. And it's also taught me that, again, you get one shot at this, no regrets. And I truly believe my husband, other than leaving me and the kids so early, I only got 14 years with him. My children only got 9 and 7 years with their father, and that's not nearly enough. I think that's the only regret he would have. He lived a full life, and he loved us. His purpose in this life was to be the father to those children. I truly believe that. And so for me now, I have to I realized how important he was to our family, how much he did that I didn't acknowledge while he was on this earth. And I really regret that I didn't thank him when he could hear it.
Thank you so much for sharing that. How do folks, as they check out Sports Gal Pal and other things you're working on, how do they find you, whether it's online, social media?
The best place to go first and foremost is the various websites. sportsgalpal.com is for Sports Gal Pal. You can go to weshouldnot.com for the other show. Spapreneur.com is coming soon. On social, it's pretty easy. I'm Sports Gal Pal throughout all of it. So you can find me there. It just depends. You can also go to podcast websites and you can find me there. I mean, I'm all over the place. It's not hard. I should have one home. I own the domain Ramona Rice, and I probably should do something with it all in good time. There's only so much a girl can do. I mean, it's interesting. You don't really expect to be in a position where I am, where I'm suddenly, I became a single mom of kids, of tiny humans, and a single mom of a fur baby in 6 hours. And when you think about that, that's pretty incredible. But it's kind of how I became a dog mom was, I'll tell you the story how we adopted her, if you don't mind.
Sure,
you want to hear that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's my husband's fault. He worked for a company in Norfolk, Virginia, and kind of like a warehouse district. And the last 2 weeks of this period, there has been this dog running around that he and the other people next to him were trying to get so they could rescue her. She looked really skinned and emancipated, and they got her. She was covered in fleas, and so they bathed her, washed her. And one of his coworkers was considering taking her home. And I show up with the kids. That was my first mistake. Oops. And I see her, and the kids are playing with her and all, and she looks terrified. And when I looked at her, my heart did a flip. And I said in my mind, that's my dog. And I've never had that happen before. Again, I am a cat person because cats are indifferent and cats don't need you all the time. Where dogs are like babies all the time. They need you constantly. And you got to, if you're going to adopt a dog or any kind of animal, you need to know that's a commitment, and it takes time and money and investment. And, don't just do it because you think it feels good. Do it because you're ready, because it's not fair to you or the animal, particularly a dog. And when I saw her, I'm going, that's the dog. That's our dog. And for a while, she would only come to me. We think she was abused, whoever had her first, because she, wouldn't go to James at all. And over time, she really became daddy's girl. It was all about daddy. I mean, and that's the way it goes with little girls and their dads. Doesn't matter if it's a dog or doesn't matter if it's a girl human. I have one of each, so I can tell you both of them were right. Daddy's girls. And so that's what I mean. When you get a chance to do something amazing, whether it's start a podcast or adopt a dog, just do it. Make sure you're ready. But, if the doors are opening, the doors are open. Like seriously, we had the room. We were thinking about adopting a dog anyway because my son really wanted one, and it just worked out, and I don't regret it ever. She's just a great addition to our family, and at night when I'm alone, she'll crawl in the bed with me, which I know is probably very bad, but right now I don't care.
We have plenty of dogs crawling in our bed. You're such a positive person. You're a force to be reckoned with, as they say. When do you get downtime? When do you get that time to yourself? when you can kind of just be yourself?
I try not to at this point, to be honest, just because if I have too much downtime, I start thinking about in terms of what I've lost. So instead, I really try to structure my time around what projects can I work on? Can I read a book that I love? Can I watch, like if I have alone time by myself and there's not a game on that I want to watch or need to watch, I'll watch a lot of Parks and Recreation on Netflix. That's Tim's fault. My co-host for We Should Not Be Friends. He's like, you need to watch this show. And I'm like, fine. And the first 2 seasons are terrible. But once you get in the third season, you're like, this is the best show ever. And so it's just happy. And I strive to be Leslie Knope every day. And so there's that. And then Alyssa, what else do I like to do? I'm going to be taking a memoir class this summer. So I'm going to be working on writing a memoir about this experience, even if I never publish it, just for my own sake to remember, because there's so many lessons. And then I just bought golf clubs. So I'm going to actually be taking golf lessons this summer.
Okay. And then you're also going to learn to clone yourself so that you can actually do all these activities within 24 hours a day. Is that what's going on?
Well, here's the deal. If I have a VA, I have people that help me with other things. And again, I'm not going to be working full time. So I'm lucky in the sense that my house, I live with my parents, and that's such a blessing. So when I need time away from myself with the kids, they will take the kids on. Even if I'm still in the house, we kind of have like, hey, you're completely off duty. We'll handle the kids. And my kids are an age now where they are somewhat self-entertained. It's not like when they were toddlers and you got to be all over them all the time going, oh God, what are they going to do? So it's kind of like, when you have an older dog, you can kind of go, hey, go in your bed, go in your crate, go in your house. That's what I tell Sophie, because she has a crate inside of our room that I never close, but I'm like, go in your house. And she knows that's her spot. And so like with my kids, I'm like, just go to your places. That's what I do. And it's just a matter of prioritizing really what's really important. And for me, it's launching these companies. But I also, with the golf thing, that'll tie into Sports Gal Pal very nicely. And then writing the memoir will tie into God knows what, but it's something I need to do. And it just, luckily, again, I can do work while the kids are swimming in the pool. And that's the way I look at it. I'm still spending time with them, but I'm hanging out and doing the things I need to do. So, I love this day and age where if you've got a laptop and the internet, you can make money. It's incredible. And I just think if 10 years ago this had happened to me, I wouldn't have been able to do this.
Right. That's a good point. That's a good point, right? It's becoming a trend now, right?
Yeah, I think so too. And I think, employers are starting to, I think, realize that, I think that in 10 years, work will look very differently than it does now. There are very few companies, honestly, where do we really need office space? Or if we have office space, it needs to be flex space. And then they need to bring dogs in. They need to let you bring your babies in, because I would have felt so much better if I could just brought the dog in with me. Because if I leave her alone too often, like she will get into stuff. Like she's really curious. So I've had to get certain trash cans and certain various other things, because that dog will find any kind of food or anything that smells like food. She will find it. I'm like, oh my gosh. Because she's curious and she's really smart. So I've had to really work with her veterinarian and just go, what do I do with her? Because she needs stimulation. So that's one of those things, or two, with the kids being home this summer and me being home this summer, we can give her some of that. So that'll be good.
If someone was going to ask you, hey, Ramona, Sophie, why should I consider adopting a dog or a cat? What would you say?
I would say the first and foremost is, like I said before, you need to ask yourself, what is it you're trying to fill? If you're trying to fill, like right now, if I were to go out and adopt a dog or a cat, it would be the worst idea, because I'm trying to fill the void of my husband. And that's not a good thing. I don't think that's healthy for you or the animal. I think instead you need to ask yourself, how does this dog enhance my life? How does this work for my life? And do I, again, have the resources available to do that? For me, we had to really ask ourselves, because we are in Charlottesville a good portion of the fall. Well, we can't bring the dog. So we had to hire dog sitters. Can we afford that? Can you afford the veterinarian care? It's not just enough just to get them food. It's like, this is, lifelong commitment. This is a baby. She will forever be a toddler. And so you have to ask yourself, do you have the time and the patience to do that? And if you do, then do it, because there's so many great, and adopt. Don't buy any animal. That's ridiculous. It infuriates me. I'm going, there are so many. You can get any dog you want. My kids see a tutor twice a week. She's a beagle rescuer. She always has purebred beagles ready to be adopted. I'm just like, and she keeps trying. There's this one named Cora, and she is, I swear that's AJ's dog, my son's dog. I mean, she just knows that that's her person. And I'm just like, no, we cannot bring another dog into the house. because we have the two, and that's enough for our family. And so, but that's what I mean. You can find any dog you want to with the right research. Don't buy a dog. That's just ridiculous.
All right. Well said. Thank you, Ramona.
Yeah.
And then really just finally, when you get that half a second to spend time with yourself and you think of James, what do you think James would say to you?
I think he'd say, babe, it's going to be okay. I think he'd tell me that. I ask myself this all the time. Am I doing enough? Am I doing the right things? Am I taking, before he died, as he was in the hospital room, I whispered to him, I said, I will take care of Anderson and Addison, our children. I will take care of everyone. And that's my biggest thing, is just, if I could hear him say anything to me at this point, it's just to say, baby, I'm proud of you and I love you and I'll see you soon.
We want to say thank you to Ramona Rice for sharing her story.
Since I spoke to Ramona, she's released several episodes of the Sports Gal Pal podcast, and her second podcast, We Should Not Be Friends, is going strong. As she mentioned, as a warning, the language can be pretty strong, so be careful who you're listening in front of. If you want to learn more about Ramona Rice, go to our show notes at thisispawprint.com/85. If you want to follow me or Nancy on social media, Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, find our profile, This is Paw Print, all one word. If you'd like to listen to more episodes of Paw Print, find us on your favorite podcast app like iTunes, SoundCloud, or iHeartRadio. Make sure to hit subscribe to get the latest episodes immediately. We just want to say thank you to all of you for sharing Paw Print with your friends and family. And remember, you spread a positive message of love and peace by saving an animal. Have a great day, everyone, and see you next time on Paw Print.
Paw Print is a production of EVER Education.
You get it!